Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN TV Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications.
The reformed Niger Delta Avengers, a coalition of 9 militant groups in the Niger Delta, has asked the federal government to ignore the South-South governor's demand for fiscal federalism and resource control in their recent meeting with the federal government's delegation led by Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, to chart a new course for sustainable peace and development in the aftermath of a recent EndSARS protest. The group, in a recent statement made available to Inside the Niger Delta, insisted that the federal government should rather put a structure in place to ensure that the statutory 13% oil derivation fund is paid directly to oil-producing communities to ensure rapid development and sustainable peace in the Niger Delta region. Correspondent Chika Buduzie takes a look at the position of the group.
Governors and leaders of 6 states comprising the South-South geopolitical zone met recently with the federal government's delegation in Port Harcourt to consider salient issues giving rise to agitations and unrest in Nigeria's oil-rich region. At the meeting, the governors and other stakeholders demanded restructuring of the Nigerian Federation to reflect fiscal federalism for equitable distribution of resources, lasting peace, security and stability in the country.
There should be a balance between the center and the federating states. Revenue sharing will be based on the principle of derivation, and the states will have the powers to create and manage their local governments. Because all these were jettisoned, creating a powerful center, controlling and distributing all the resources, most often unevenly, there are now strong desire that we need to restructure the country in order to guarantee peace, security, stability, and progress.
Barely days after the Port Harcourt meeting, the reformed Niger Delta Avengers issued a press statement urging the federal government to disregard the demands of the South-South governors. The group regretted that the South-South states had received trillions of naira through the 13% derivation fund in the last 20 years, but have failed to deploy such funds to develop the oil-producing communities. Rather than accede to the demands of the South-South governors, the reformed Niger Delta Avengers is calling on the federal government to put a stop to the payment of 13% derivation funds into state coffers. In a press statement released to Inside the Niger Delta, Commanding Officer of the reformed Niger Delta Avengers, John Mark Ezonebi, alias Obama, called for an immediate establishment of a presidential 13% derivation monitoring and implementation committee to ensure that the funds are paid directly to oil-producing communities and utilized to their benefit. The call has continued to generate reactions from other groups in the Niger Delta.
Whereas we've had this humongous amount of money coming into the region, we can barely find commensurate infrastructural accomplishment or achievements to go with these funds. So it is not justified that the governors keep on making agitations or making arguments to continue to control the resources that come to the region. Major states like Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Rivers should also toe that line of having a development commission that should manage the 13% that accrues from oil derivation. I think that's a strong argument. The governors of the region should cease from managing the 13% derivation funds.
The derivation principle was conceived in 1999 to ameliorate the sufferings of oil-producing communities that have had to contend with massive environmental pollution and loss of livelihoods on account of crude oil drilling in the oil fields of the Niger Delta for several decades. Over the years, the diversion of 13% derivation funds to the development of communities lying outside the oil belt of the Niger Delta has given the oil and gas host communities of Nigeria, HOSTCON, cause for worry. Few weeks back, members of HOSTCON, led by its national chairman, Dr. Mike Emu, visited Deputy Senate President Ovie Omo-Agege to make a case for the establishment of Oil Mineral Areas Development Commissions to manage the 13% oil derivation funds in the best economic interest of oil-producing communities. The move was said to have been informed by mounting tension in the oil-producing communities in the wake of the recent EndSARS protests.
Our voice, after the EndSARS protest, we issued an 11-point agenda, including the issues that have affect host communities. We told the voice that, well, we are working hard with the government people. We have been in touch with the Deputy Senate President on this matter. We have been in touch with the SSA on Niger Delta Affairs. Please hold on whatever you want to do. While there are pronouncements on about 2 major issues, the gas flare and the 13%, there's still a lot to be done.
I know what it means for the youth of Niger Delta to show anger. Why Nigeria can survive EndSARS, it would be almost impossible for Nigeria to survive the anger of the youth of Niger Delta. Yes. Taking that into account, that's why I reached out and pleaded with you that whatever your grievances, sheath your swords.
In its recent press statement, the reformed Niger Delta Avengers noted that after holding peace talks with the Deputy Senate President and other prominent indigenes of the Niger Delta, it had temporarily put on hold a plan to resume hostilities in the region. The group, however, vowed to revert to its earlier position should the federal government continue to turn a blind eye to the emasculation of oil-producing communities through the misappropriation of 13% oil derivation funds by state governors. The reformed Niger Delta Avengers says it's favorably disposed to proper resource governance and fiscal responsibility as a strategy to reduce poverty and end insecurity in the Niger Delta. As a long-term measure to address feelings of economic marginalization in the region, the coalition of militant groups advises the federal government to consider an upward review of the 13% benchmark on its derivation principle to provide social justice not only for oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta, but for all regions where natural resources are exploited across the country.
Inside the Niger Delta,